Self-Confidence Books in English. Introduction. Self-confidence is the cornerstone of a fulfilling and successful life, and this book serves as a powerful guide for anyone seeking to understand, develop, and strengthen this essential quality. In a world where doubt, comparison, fear, and failure often hold people back from reaching their full potential, self-confidence becomes the inner engine that drives personal growth, achievement, and resilience. This book begins by explaining that self-confidence is not a trait limited to a lucky few, but rather a skill that can be cultivated over time through intentional thought, action, and practice. Drawing from psychology, personal development principles, and real-life stories, the author presents a clear and motivating message. The way you see yourself determines the quality of your life. If you believe you are capable, worthy, and deserving of success, you will act accordingly and create better outcomes. If you doubt yourself, you may hesitate, avoid opportunities, and settle for less. The introduction emphasizes that confidence is not arrogance or ego, but a deep sense of self-trust and calm assurance in your own abilities. Through the lens of self-awareness, positive mindset, and focused habits, the book outlines how confidence affects every aspect of your life, your career, relationships, communication, and even health. The author invites readers to explore the internal dialogue that shapes their self-image, identifying limiting beliefs and patterns that have been unknowingly programmed through childhood, education, and society. With compassion and clarity, the book offers tools to challenge these limiting thoughts, replacing them with empowering beliefs that build a more resilient identity. The introduction sets the tone by asserting that action is key. Confidence grows not by thinking about it, but by facing fears, setting goals, taking steps, and learning from setbacks. Each small action becomes a building block for stronger self-esteem and courage. The author also addresses the role of failure in the confidence journey, arguing that setbacks are not signs of inadequacy, but valuable lessons that shape and refine your growth. With each challenge you face and overcome, you become more certain of your strength. The book encourages readers to take ownership of their narrative, to stop waiting for permission or perfection, and to step forward even when they feel unsure. In doing so, they begin to rewire their brain and develop what the author calls earned confidence, a deep, authentic sense of self-belief rooted in experience and effort. The introduction stresses that the journey of confidence is ongoing and personal. There is no single formula, but rather a set of principles that anyone can apply to their own life, regardless of background or current circumstances. Readers are reminded that confidence is contagious. It affects how others perceive and respond to you, opening doors and attracting opportunities. As the foundation of personal power, confidence allows you to speak up, take risks, lead others, and live with greater authenticity and joy. The book promises to guide the reader through this journey, chapter by chapter, breaking down the internal and external strategies needed to grow in confidence and sustain it through life's ups and downs. From goal setting and visualization to managing fear, building competence, and developing positive habits, each chapter builds on the introduction's core message. You have the power to change how you see yourself and, by doing so, change your entire life. By the end of the introduction, the reader is not only inspired but equipped with a new mindset, a belief that confidence is a choice, a practice, and a lifelong companion on the path to personal success. Chapter 1, The Foundation of Self-Confidence, lays the essential groundwork for understanding what self-confidence truly is and why it plays such a vital role in personal success, happiness, and inner peace. The chapter opens by stating that self-confidence is not something we are born with, but rather something we develop through life experiences, beliefs, and conscious effort. It distinguishes self-confidence from arrogance or false pride, clarifying that true confidence is rooted in self-awareness, humility, and a belief in one's ability to learn, grow, and adapt, not in believing you are better than others. The author emphasizes that the way we perceive ourselves, our self-image, has a powerful influence on how we act, make decisions, and interact with the world around us. People who see themselves as capable and worthy are more likely to take positive action, take risks, accept challenges, and pursue goals, while those with low self-confidence often hesitate, self-sabotage, or settle for less than they deserve. The foundation of self-confidence, according to this chapter, begins in the mind. The thoughts we repeat daily create emotional patterns which then shape behavior. If someone constantly tells themselves they're not good enough or compares themselves to others, they are unconsciously reinforcing a weak foundation of self-doubt. But the good news is, this can be reversed by changing our inner dialogue. The author introduces the concept of self-efficacy, a term from psychology that refers to a person's belief in their capacity to perform specific tasks and influence outcomes. Building self-efficacy is a critical part of strengthening confidence, and it begins with small wins, accomplishing tasks, learning new things, and slowly pushing the edge of your comfort zone. These moments become internal proof that you are capable, and over time, this proof becomes your foundation. The chapter also explains how environment and early conditioning affect our level of confidence. From childhood, we receive messages, both spoken and unspoken, from parents, teachers, friends, and society. Some of these messages uplift and encourage us, while others instill fear, shame, or limitation. A child told repeatedly that they aren't smart or that they should be quiet may grow up internalizing those labels, leading to low confidence in adulthood. Therefore, unlearning these harmful beliefs and replacing them with empowering ones is a crucial step in rebuilding the foundation. The author encourages readers to take personal responsibility for their confidence journey, stating that no one else can do the inner work for you, and waiting for external validation will only leave you dependent on others' opinions. The chapter also discusses the role of integrity in confidence. When your actions align with your values, you naturally feel stronger and more self-assured, while living in conflict with your own beliefs can quietly erode your inner strength. Another pillar in the foundation is self-acceptance, which means embracing who you are today, even with flaws and imperfections, while still striving to grow. Accepting yourself does not mean staying stagnant but rather giving yourself permission to be human and learn along the way. The chapter dives into the importance of setting personal standards, not in comparison to others but as a way to take ownership of your growth. When you set goals and follow through, your brain begins to trust you. That self-trust is at the heart of self-confidence. People often look outward for approval, but true confidence is built when you approve of yourself, when you keep promises to yourself, and when you do the hard things even when no one is watching. The author highlights a key concept: action precedes confidence. Waiting to feel confident before taking action is a trap. Confidence actually grows as a result of action. Even taking imperfect steps helps you build momentum and gain experience, which in turn increases your confidence. The more you challenge yourself, even in small ways, the more you expand your belief in what you're capable of. The chapter encourages readers to journal, reflect, and become more mindful of their self-talk. One exercise suggested is writing down past achievements, no matter how small, to remind yourself of your strength and progress. Gratitude, visualization, and affirmations are introduced as daily habits that contribute to a healthy self-image. Visualization, for example, helps your brain mentally rehearse success, making it easier to take real-life steps. The author also shares stories of individuals who overcame deep insecurity by slowly building their foundation of self-confidence, proving that no matter how low someone starts, growth is always possible with patience and practice. Importantly, the chapter warns against the trap of perfectionism, which is often masked as ambition but is actually fear in disguise. Perfectionism can paralyze action and convince people they're never good enough, when in reality, growth comes from doing things before you feel fully ready. The chapter wraps up by encouraging readers to treat confidence like a daily practice, similar to working out. You don't go to the gym once and expect permanent results, and confidence is the same. It must be nurtured through effort, reflection, and consistent action. It's not about being fearless but about acting despite fear. In short, Chapter 1 sets the tone for the rest of the book by helping readers understand that self-confidence is a deeply internal process, shaped by thoughts, beliefs, habits, and choices. By taking responsibility for how we view ourselves, by shifting from self-criticism to self-compassion, and by actively choosing to grow, we begin to build a solid and lasting foundation of self-confidence, one that carries us through challenges and helps us create the life we truly desire. Chapter 2, The Psychology of Confidence, takes the reader deeper into the internal world of thoughts, beliefs, and emotional conditioning to uncover how confidence is formed, shaped, and either strengthened or weakened by the way we think and perceive ourselves. At the heart of this chapter is the idea that our minds are powerful tools, and our self-confidence is largely a product of how we use them, more specifically how we interpret our experiences, how we speak to ourselves, and the beliefs we carry, consciously or unconsciously, about who we are and what we're capable of. The author explains that confidence is not just about external actions, but more importantly, it's about the internal dialogue that precedes those actions. If we believe we're intelligent, capable, worthy, and resilient, we are far more likely to take positive risks, learn from failure, and persist through challenges. But if our mind is dominated by negative thoughts like, "I'm not good enough," "I always mess up," or "people are better than me," we will inevitably hesitate, shrink, and sabotage our own progress. The chapter introduces key psychological concepts such as self-concept and self-image, how we see ourselves and what we believe to be true about our identity. These mental frameworks are often shaped early in life, influenced by family, culture, peers, and experiences. A child who is constantly criticized may internalize the belief that they are incapable or unworthy, even if they grow into an adult with talent and potential. The chapter emphasizes that many people operate from outdated or false mental programming, never questioning the stories they've been told about themselves, and this programming silently erodes their confidence. But just as a computer can be reprogrammed, so can the human mind. The author stresses that one of the most powerful tools we have is awareness, the ability to observe our own thoughts without being ruled by them. When we become conscious of our inner dialogue, we can begin to challenge and replace destructive thoughts with more empowering ones. The book also explores the role of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change and rewire itself through repetition and experience. Every time we think a certain way or act with courage, we are literally training our brain to become more confident. Just as negative thoughts and habits weaken confidence over time, positive ones can build it up. The chapter also discusses confirmation bias, a psychological phenomenon where we tend to look for evidence that supports our existing beliefs. If we believe we're not good enough, we unconsciously filter out positive feedback and focus only on our flaws or failures. This means we must be intentional about shifting our focus, consciously looking for evidence of our strengths, progress, and successes, no matter how small. The author suggests practical exercises like keeping a confidence journal, where readers write down daily accomplishments and moments when they felt proud, strong, or resilient. This not only builds a new mental narrative but also reinforces the habit of looking for the good within ourselves. The chapter highlights that emotion plays a central role in confidence, specifically the connection between thoughts and feelings. If you think empowering thoughts, you will feel more energized, capable, and motivated. But negative thoughts quickly lead to feelings of fear, anxiety, and helplessness. The cycle is self-reinforcing. Thoughts create feelings, feelings influence behavior, and behavior produces outcomes that feed back into our thoughts. Breaking the negative cycle and replacing it with a positive one is the essence of confidence psychology. The chapter also dives into the concept of imposter syndrome, a psychological pattern where capable people doubt their accomplishments and fear being exposed as a fraud. Many high-achieving individuals experience this, and it is rooted in a distorted self-image, perfectionism, and fear of judgment. The author reminds readers that everyone has doubts and insecurities, but confident people don't let those feelings stop them. They acknowledge them but take action anyway. A key takeaway from this chapter is that confidence is a learned mental habit, not a fixed personality trait. It grows when you consistently direct your thoughts toward possibility rather than limitation, when you manage fear rather than avoid it, and when you choose to believe in your potential rather than be controlled by past failures. The chapter also explains how the mind is influenced by physical state and body language. Standing tall, breathing deeply, and speaking clearly can create a psychological shift toward more confidence. The body and mind are connected, and when we use our physiology to signal strength, the brain begins to follow. Another powerful insight is the role of visualization. The brain doesn't fully distinguish between vividly imagined events and real ones, so when you visualize yourself succeeding, whether giving a speech, acing an interview, or overcoming a fear, you are mentally rehearsing confidence, making it more natural and automatic when the real moment comes. The author encourages using mental imagery daily to shape the subconscious and prepare for success. The chapter also explores how identity shapes behavior. If you identify as a confident person, you're more likely to act with confidence, even before you feel fully ready. That's why using identity-based affirmations like, "I am capable," "I am courageous," or "I trust myself," can shift your internal reality, and over time, external behavior begins to match. The message is clear. Confidence is not about eliminating all fear or doubt. It's about training the mind to believe in progress, to expect success, and to act with faith even in uncertainty. The psychology of confidence is therefore deeply rooted in mindset, and the author urges readers to treat their thoughts like seeds. Whatever you plant, water, and nurture will grow. So if you feed your mind with encouragement, growth, and self-respect, you will build a mind that supports and empowers you. This chapter makes it clear that the journey to confidence begins not with external changes, but with internal transformation, by shifting your beliefs, managing your emotions, and choosing thoughts that align with who you want to become. It reminds the reader that no matter where you are starting from, your mind can be your greatest ally if you learn how to master it. Chapter 3: Setting Clear Goals emphasizes that one of the most powerful ways to build and sustain self-confidence is by setting clear, meaningful goals that give direction, purpose, and momentum to your life. The chapter begins with a key truth. People with well-defined goals tend to be more focused, motivated, and confident because they know where they are going and why they are taking action. Without goals, life becomes reactive rather than proactive, and individuals often feel lost, uncertain, or unfulfilled, not due to a lack of talent or opportunity, but because they haven't taken the time to decide what they truly want. The author explains that confidence thrives on clarity, and setting goals creates a mental map for the brain to follow. When the mind knows what it's aiming for, it becomes easier to concentrate, make decisions, and measure progress, all of which reinforce a sense of personal power and direction. This chapter explores the psychology behind goal setting, referencing studies that show people who write down their goals and review them regularly are significantly more likely to achieve them. The act of writing goals engages both the conscious and subconscious mind, creating alignment between your thoughts and actions. The author stresses the importance of being specific, saying, "I want to be successful," is vague and uninspiring, while, "I want to earn $5,000 a month from my business by December," gives the brain a target to lock onto and chase. Specificity breeds clarity, and clarity boosts confidence because it transforms hope into a plan. The chapter introduces the SMART goal framework, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, as a tool to structure goals effectively. By using this method, readers are encouraged to break large dreams into smaller, manageable steps that can be tracked, measured, and celebrated. Achieving even small milestones creates a chain reaction of positive emotion and growing belief in one's abilities. The author points out that goals must also be meaningful. When your goals are aligned with your values and passions, you feel more energized and committed, even when challenges arise. Goals that are chosen just to impress others or follow external expectations can lead to burnout or inner conflict, while goals that are rooted in your true desires create intrinsic motivation, which is much more powerful and sustainable. The chapter dives into the emotional connection behind goals, stating that visualization and emotional engagement are key to turning goals into reality. When you visualize yourself already having achieved your goal, your brain starts to build a new identity around that vision, and you begin acting in ways that are consistent with that future. This process not only boosts belief but also helps you stay emotionally connected to the outcome, making it easier to persist when obstacles appear. The author reminds readers that the road to any meaningful goal is rarely smooth. Setbacks, fear, and doubt will show up, but when your goals are clear, you have a compass to return to when you feel lost. Confidence grows each time you recommit to your path, even after falling. The chapter also highlights the importance of writing your goals in the present tense, as if they are already true. For example, writing "I am confident, healthy, and earning what I deserve" trains the subconscious mind to accept this new reality as possible and begins to rewire your thinking accordingly. This language creates a shift from wishing to becoming. In addition to long-term goals, the author encourages readers to set daily and weekly goals, small actions that align with the bigger picture. This creates momentum and keeps motivation alive. The compound effect of consistent small wins leads to massive transformation over time. The chapter also warns against the trap of setting too many goals at once or setting goals that are unrealistic in the short term, as this can create overwhelm, disappointment, and self-doubt. Instead, readers are urged to focus on a few high-impact goals and give them their full energy and attention. Another key message in this chapter is the link between goals and self-respect. When you set a goal and follow through, you send a message to your subconscious that you are disciplined, capable, and trustworthy. This builds self-confidence from the inside out. On the other hand, when you constantly break promises to yourself or abandon goals halfway, your confidence erodes because your self-image weakens. Therefore, setting realistic, challenging, and motivating goals, and taking consistent action toward them, is not just about achieving external success, but about building an internal identity of someone who shows up, takes responsibility, and creates results. The chapter also touches on the idea that goals should stretch you, not stress you. It's important to set goals that push you beyond your comfort zone, because growth happens at the edge of challenge. However, they should also feel achievable with effort. This balance builds what the author calls confident ambition, the belief that while you may not be there yet, you're fully capable of getting there with time and effort. The chapter ends with powerful encouragement. The simple act of setting and pursuing clear goals transforms you. Even if you haven't achieved them yet, the fact that you are taking charge of your future already separates you from the majority of people who drift through life with no clear direction. Goal setting is not just a productivity tool, it's an act of self-belief. It says, "I trust myself to grow, to try, and to succeed." When you wake up every day knowing what you're working toward and why it matters to you, you become more focused, energized, and aligned with your highest potential. In this way, goals are not separate from confidence, they are the fuel that powers it. With every goal you pursue, you reinforce your identity as someone who takes life seriously, someone who creates rather than waits, and someone who is worthy of success. Ultimately, Chapter 3 makes it clear that setting clear, specific, and meaningful goals is one of the most direct paths to building lasting self-confidence and creating a life filled with purpose, achievement, and personal power. Chapter 4, Taking Action, is the pivotal turning point in the journey towards self-confidence, emphasizing that no amount of positive thinking, planning, or dreaming can substitute for the transformative power of doing, the bold, sometimes uncomfortable, but always empowering process of taking consistent, intentional action toward your goals. The chapter begins with a fundamental truth. Confidence is not something you wait to have before acting, it is something you build through action itself. The author explains that one of the most common misconceptions people have is believing they need to feel completely ready, fearless, or in the mood before they can begin moving forward. But in reality, action is what creates readiness, and movement is what dissolves fear. You can study, journal, visualize, and read all the right books, but until you start doing the thing you've been avoiding, your confidence will remain theoretical instead of lived. Taking action is what turns belief into evidence and transforms intention into identity. This chapter explores the psychological barriers that often prevent people from acting: fear of failure, fear of judgment, perfectionism, and self-doubt, and how these are mental stories, not fixed realities. The author insists that action does not require the absence of fear, but rather a willingness to move in spite of it, and every time you do, you reinforce the belief that you are capable, courageous, and in control of your life. The difference between confident people and those who lack confidence often comes down to one thing. Confident people act even when they don't feel fully ready. They understand that confidence is not built in the comfort zone but on the edges of discomfort, where growth lives. The chapter urges readers to stop waiting for the perfect moment, because it never arrives. Life rewards those who take imperfect action now instead of waiting forever to feel perfect later. Action brings clarity. When you take even the smallest step, you get feedback, you learn something, and you create momentum, which is one of the most powerful forces behind confidence. The author explains that momentum is like compound interest for your self-esteem. Small, daily actions, when repeated consistently, lead to massive results over time, not only in your external life but also in how you view yourself. When you show up repeatedly, even when it's hard, your brain starts to register that you are someone who follows through, and that identity becomes your foundation. The chapter highlights how procrastination is often just disguised fear, and how by postponing action, we feed a cycle of self-doubt that chips away at our confidence. The solution is to simplify, focus on just the next small step. You don't need to see the whole staircase, just take the first step and the rest will become visible. By breaking down big goals into bite-sized actions, the process becomes less overwhelming and more manageable, allowing you to build momentum while reducing the pressure to be perfect. The author gives real-life examples of people who started with nothing but an idea and a little courage: entrepreneurs, artists, students, who didn't wait until they felt confident, but acted their way into confidence by showing up consistently and learning along the way. The chapter also explores the science behind action, explaining how behavior influences emotion. When you act confidently, even if you don't feel confident yet, your physiology begins to align with that behavior. Standing tall, speaking clearly, making eye contact, and taking initiative all send signals to your brain that you are safe, capable, and in control, which reinforces the emotional state of confidence. This is why the phrase, "fake it until you make it," is partially true, not about being inauthentic but about behaving in alignment with the version of yourself you are becoming. Another core idea in this chapter is the importance of repetition. Confidence is not built from one big leap, but from small, repeated actions over time. Habits are the secret weapon of confident people, and the author encourages readers to create daily routines that involve taking action in the direction of their goals, whether it's making a phone call, sending an email, practicing a skill, or stepping outside their comfort zone in some small way. Every action is a vote for the kind of person you want to become. The author also addresses the inevitability of failure and rejection along the way, reframing them not as reasons to stop, but as necessary parts of the process. Taking action doesn't guarantee success, but it does guarantee growth, and growth leads to confidence. Failure is not the opposite of success but a stepping stone toward it. The chapter encourages readers to detach from perfectionism and adopt a mindset of experimentation. Treat life like a series of tests, not a final exam. Try things. Learn from mistakes. Adjust and try again. This mindset shift reduces pressure and makes it easier to act boldly, because the fear of getting it wrong no longer paralyzes you. The author also touches on the power of accountability, surrounding yourself with people who encourage and challenge you to act, sharing your goals with those who uplift you, and celebrating progress with others. Being part of a community that values action can supercharge your momentum. The chapter closes with a strong call to action. If you want to build unshakable self-confidence, you must become a person of action, not just when you feel like it but especially when you don't. Motivation is fleeting, but discipline, the decision to act regardless of how you feel, is the path to mastery. Taking action transforms the abstract into the real. It builds resilience, proves your strength to yourself, and creates the kind of self-trust that is the true core of lasting confidence. Ultimately, this chapter is a powerful reminder that action is not just something you do after you feel confident, it is how you create confidence. By making action your habit, you stop waiting to become the person you want to be and start living as that person, one step at a time, one bold move at a time, rewriting your story with every decision you make to show up, do the work, and take control of your destiny. Chapter 5, Overcoming Fear and Doubt, dives into one of the most essential and universal parts of building self-confidence: the ability to face, understand, and ultimately rise above the fears and self-doubts that often sabotage our growth before we even begin. From the very first lines, the chapter makes it clear that fear is not the enemy. It is a natural and deeply human response that arises whenever we step into the unknown, take risks, or challenge our comfort zones. Fear is designed to protect us, but when left unchecked, it can also paralyze us, hold us back from opportunities, and keep us stuck in a life far smaller than the one we're capable of living. The author explains that most of the fear people experience today isn't physical or life-threatening, it's psychological. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough, fear of rejection, fear of being vulnerable, fear of success, and even fear of change. These fears often originate from past experiences, childhood conditioning, or society's expectations, and over time, they become internalized voices whispering, "What if I fail? What if they laugh at me? What if I'm not good enough?" The chapter highlights that one of the first steps to overcoming fear and doubt is becoming aware of them, not running away or pretending they don't exist but facing them directly and naming them. When you bring fear into the light, it begins to lose its power. The author reminds us that fear thrives in silence and secrecy but shrinks when we examine it with curiosity and courage. One powerful strategy discussed is reframing fear as a signal that growth is near. Instead of interpreting fear as a stop sign, we can learn to see it as a compass, pointing us toward the exact place where we need to grow. The most confident people aren't fearless. They simply feel the fear and move forward anyway, understanding that courage isn't the absence of fear but the willingness to act despite it. The chapter encourages readers to question their fears and doubts, asking themselves, is this fear based on truth or assumption? What's the worst that could really happen? Have I survived similar situations before? Often we find that our fears are inflated and not nearly as dangerous as they seem. Doubt, similarly, is exposed for what it truly is: a thought, not a fact. The author discusses the internal critic, the voice of self-doubt that constantly questions our worth and capability, and explains that this voice is often a reflection of other people's fears that we've absorbed, not our authentic self. The chapter urges us to challenge this voice with logic, compassion, and action. One of the most powerful tools for disarming doubt is keeping a record of your wins. Times when you were afraid but acted anyway, times when you succeeded despite uncertainty, and even times when you failed but grew stronger. This creates a library of evidence that you are capable and resilient. The chapter emphasizes that fear cannot survive sustained action. When you move toward what scares you, in small, manageable steps, you shrink its influence and expand your courage. Fear loses its grip when it is met with consistent forward motion. The author introduces the concept of fear reps, similar to lifting weights. Each time you face a fear, whether it's speaking up, trying something new, or confronting a limiting belief, you're strengthening your bravery muscle, and over time what once felt terrifying becomes normal. The same goes for self-doubt. Every time you follow through on a promise to yourself, every time you step into discomfort, you cast a vote for your own capability. The chapter also talks about the importance of environment. Who you surround yourself with either fuels your confidence or feeds your fear. Spending time with people who support your growth, who believe in your potential, and who encourage you to take healthy risks creates a buffer against fear and helps quiet the inner critic. On the other hand, toxic influences, unsupportive voices, and environments rooted in judgment or negativity can amplify fear and reinforce doubt. Therefore, curating your emotional and social environment is just as important as managing your internal one. Another major theme in this chapter is self-compassion. The idea that you can still move forward even if you feel afraid, and that you can treat yourself with kindness rather than criticism when fear gets in the way. The author stresses that overcoming fear isn't about becoming invincible, it's about learning to be human and brave at the same time. Confidence doesn't come from always getting it right, it comes from knowing you can recover, learn, and continue no matter what. The chapter offers powerful visualization exercises for overcoming fear, encouraging readers to imagine themselves succeeding in situations that currently scare them. By visualizing positive outcomes, your brain begins to create new neural pathways that counter fear-based thinking. This practice, combined with affirmations like, "I am bigger than my fear," "I can handle discomfort," and "I trust myself to grow," helps retrain the mind to approach fear with more strength and certainty. The author also recommends breathing techniques and grounding exercises for moments when fear spikes physically. Simple actions like deep breathing, posture shifts, and present moment awareness can calm the nervous system and bring you back to clarity. The final sections of the chapter circle back to a profound truth. The life you want, the version of you that is confident, fulfilled, and free, lives on the other side of fear. Every time you walk through fear, you become more of that person. You begin to trust yourself more, believe in yourself more, and see challenges not as threats but as invitations. Doubt will still whisper, but it no longer controls your decisions. Fear may still appear, but it no longer holds the steering wheel. Ultimately, Chapter 5 is a heartfelt call to embrace fear not as a wall, but as a doorway. The question is not whether fear will show up. It will, but whether you will answer with courage. And when you do, you rewrite the story of who you are and what you are capable of. Confidence, then, is not something you wait for, it's something you claim, one bold choice at a time, each time you choose to believe in yourself more than you believe in your fear. Chapter 6, Building Competence and Mastery, dives deep into the idea that true, lasting self-confidence doesn't come from shallow affirmations or surface-level motivation, but from the unshakable belief that you are capable, an inner strength born through competence, skill, and experience. This chapter makes it clear that confidence isn't simply a matter of mindset, it's also the natural byproduct of doing something well over time. Mastery is what gives confidence real roots, and this is where the journey shifts from purely emotional to deeply practical. The author starts by emphasizing that competence isn't something you're born with, it's something you build through repetition, effort, and deliberate practice. Whether you want to be confident in public speaking, starting a business, managing relationships, or mastering a creative craft, your belief in yourself must be grounded in the skills and knowledge you actively develop. Confidence without competence can lead to arrogance or delusion, but competence without confidence often leads to wasted potential. The sweet spot, the kind of powerful, quiet confidence that radiates from within, comes when you know you've earned your abilities through focused effort and real-world results. This chapter explores how skill building is a process, not an event. The author introduces the concept of progressive competence, explaining that mastery is not about perfection or being the best in the world. It's about becoming better than you were yesterday, week by week, month by month. It's about immersing yourself in a craft or discipline long enough that your brain and body begin to operate with fluency and instinct. At first, everything feels hard and your confidence may be low because you're not yet skilled, but that's normal and even necessary. The author encourages readers to embrace this early phase of incompetence with humility and patience, reminding us that everyone starts as a beginner, and those who persist through the awkward stages are the ones who eventually rise above. The chapter also explores the learning curve, where most people quit. When you're building a new skill, the beginning is exciting, but then the reality of the challenge sets in, and that's where resilience matters most. Confidence begins to take root when you push through this plateau and start seeing tangible progress. The chapter outlines strategies for building competence faster. Focused, deliberate practice, not just repetition but intentional effort. Seeking feedback from mentors or peers, studying those ahead of you, and tracking your progress to build awareness of your growth. It stresses the importance of not just consuming information but applying it. Passive learning, like reading or watching videos, must be paired with real-world action to transform knowledge into ability. Another key idea explored is the power of consistency. Mastery isn't about doing something once in a while when motivation hits. It's about showing up regularly, even when it's boring, difficult, or inconvenient. That consistency builds not only skill but self-trust, because every time you keep a promise to yourself, you reinforce the belief that you are reliable, disciplined, and capable. Over time, your brain begins to see yourself as someone who finishes what they start, and this identity shift lays a rock-solid foundation for confidence. The author also discusses the importance of celebrating small wins along the way, recognizing when you've improved even slightly and using that as fuel to keep going. Each milestone, no matter how small, is evidence that your efforts are working, and that momentum builds motivation. The chapter then delves into the relationship between curiosity and mastery. Those who approach learning with curiosity tend to excel faster and enjoy the process more. Instead of fearing mistakes, they ask, "What can I learn from this?" They see challenges as puzzles, not punishments. This mindset not only accelerates competence but also makes the journey fulfilling. The author shares examples of people who became leaders in their fields not because they were naturally gifted, but because they became obsessed with improving, reading, practicing, experimenting, and refining their craft over years. The message is clear. Mastery is within reach for anyone willing to commit. The chapter also addresses imposter syndrome, which often shows up even when you're competent. Many high-achieving individuals still feel like frauds, doubting their worth despite having evidence of success. The author explains that imposter syndrome isn't a sign you're unqualified, it's often a sign you're growing, stepping into a new level of competence and temporarily uncomfortable with that expansion. The way through it is not to wait until you feel 100% certain, but to continue showing up, doing the work, and letting results speak for themselves. The more you focus on contribution over perfection, the faster imposter feelings fade. Confidence grows when you shift from, "Am I good enough?" to, "How can I serve, improve, or add value today?" The chapter ends with a powerful truth. Building mastery is a long-term game, and those who succeed are not necessarily the smartest or most talented, but the most consistent and committed. When you dedicate yourself to learning, practicing, and improving a specific skill set, you create a well of confidence that cannot be faked. You walk into situations knowing you've done the work. You trust yourself not because you're flawless but because you've seen yourself grow. And in a world full of noise and insecurity, that kind of deep, earned confidence is rare and priceless. Ultimately, Chapter 6 reinforces that building competence and mastery is not only about achieving external success, but about creating internal certainty. It's about becoming someone who knows what they're capable of, who walks with quiet strength, and who doesn't need to prove anything, because they've already proven it to themselves. Confidence, then, is not found in talk or theory, it's found in doing, learning, improving, and rising again. The more you grow in skill, the more you grow in self-belief. And when confidence is built on competence, it becomes unshakable. Chapter 7, Positive Habits for a Confident Life, brings the focus to the everyday routines and behaviors that shape your identity, mindset, and level of self-confidence over time, revealing that confidence isn't just about how you feel in big moments, but about the small, intentional actions you take every single day that compound into a powerful, unshakable belief in yourself. The author begins by emphasizing that habits are the quiet architects of our lives, often operating beneath the surface yet determining our outcomes, shaping our thoughts, and reinforcing our self-image. If confidence is the tree, then habits are the roots, deep, consistent, often invisible but absolutely essential. This chapter explores how confident people don't just rely on motivation or hype. Instead, they structure their lives around rituals and behaviors that align with their values, goals, and vision of their best self. It explains that habits are the bridge between who you are and who you want to become, and that by intentionally crafting daily habits rooted in self-respect, discipline, and growth, you gradually transform the way you see yourself. You stop being someone who hopes to feel confident and start becoming someone who lives confidently by default. The chapter outlines several cornerstone habits that, when practiced consistently, can elevate your sense of self-worth, strengthen your mindset, and build an internal system of accountability that makes confidence sustainable. One of the most powerful habits introduced is daily intention setting, starting each morning with clarity about who you want to be, what kind of energy you want to bring, and what your priorities are. This simple act trains your mind to focus on purpose rather than pressure and helps you navigate the day from a position of power instead of passivity. Closely tied to this is habitual self-reflection, where you take a few minutes at the end of the day to review your wins, lessons, and how you showed up. This process strengthens self-awareness and creates a feedback loop where you grow more confident not by being perfect, but by becoming more honest, consistent, and compassionate with yourself over time. The chapter dives into the importance of physical habits too, like regular exercise, proper sleep, hydration, and nutrition, not just for health but because when you take care of your body, you send a powerful message to your mind that you matter, and this builds integrity and self-respect. The author reminds us that how you treat yourself physically impacts your emotional energy and mental clarity, and confident people tend to prioritize rituals that keep them strong, sharp, and energized. Another habit explored is positive self-talk, the practice of replacing self-limiting thoughts with empowering language. The author explains that our internal dialogue shapes how we interpret the world and ourselves, and that by catching negative thoughts and reframing them with truth and encouragement, you gradually rewire your brain to believe in your own value. Affirmations aren't about pretending problems don't exist. They're about speaking to yourself with the same support you'd offer a friend. The chapter also highlights the habit of daily discomfort, challenging yourself to do at least one thing each day that stretches your comfort zone. Whether that's speaking up in a meeting, reaching out to someone new, or tackling a task you've been avoiding, the goal is to train your nervous system to become familiar with growth-based fear and to build emotional resilience through microdoses of courage. The author explains that each act of discomfort is like a deposit in your confidence bank, small in the moment, but incredibly valuable over time. Another essential habit discussed is goal-oriented journaling, where you write about your intentions, dreams, challenges, and progress regularly to clarify your vision and stay emotionally grounded. Writing is thinking made visible, and this habit helps you process fear, celebrate growth, and stay connected to your evolving purpose. Gratitude is also spotlighted as a key habit. When practiced daily, it trains your brain to scan for the good, which shifts your emotional baseline from lack to abundance. Confident people often have a grateful spirit, not because life is perfect, but because they've built the habit of seeing what's working, and this mindset creates the emotional foundation for bold action. The chapter introduces boundary setting as another powerful habit. Learning to say no to what drains you and yes to what aligns with your highest self. When you respect your time and energy, you build the habit of self-worth. Confidence thrives when you stop overcommitting to please others and start living in alignment with your own values. The chapter also emphasizes the habit of continuous learning, encouraging readers to develop a lifestyle of curiosity, reading, mentorship, and skill development. Confident people don't assume they know everything, they're always growing, and that growth becomes the engine of their belief in themselves. Whether it's reading 10 pages a day, listening to a podcast on your commute, or taking an online course, the habit of investing in your mind reinforces the belief that you are evolving and capable of more. The author warns against confidence-killing habits like procrastination, complaining, comparing yourself to others, and excessive screen time, and suggests replacing them with habits like scheduling your priorities, practicing presence, and celebrating others. The chapter closes with the powerful truth that confidence is a reflection of how you live, not just how you feel. You don't have to wait to feel confident to build these habits. You build the habits and confidence grows as a result. It's not about being perfect every day, it's about choosing to show up for yourself more often than not. When you anchor your life in small, consistent actions that honor your goals and values, you stop chasing confidence and start living it. Confidence becomes who you are because it's what you practice. And when your habits reflect belief in yourself, the world begins to believe in you too, not because of what you say but because of how you live. Ultimately, Chapter 7 reminds us that the fastest way to change your life is to change your habits, because your habits shape your identity, and your identity shapes your confidence. Conclusion. In conclusion, this journey into the heart of self-confidence reveals a profound truth. Confidence is not a mysterious gift bestowed on a lucky few, but a learnable, buildable, and deeply personal practice that every individual has the power to develop and live by. As we've seen throughout this book, self-confidence is not about pretending to be someone you're not, or masking insecurity with bravado. It's about stepping into your truth, owning your journey, and believing in your ability to grow, adapt, and rise no matter what challenges you face. True confidence comes from within, rooted in self-awareness, self-respect, and the choices you make each day that align with the person you're becoming. It's the product of consistent action, intentional mindset shifts, and the courage to keep going even when fear whispers that you're not enough. From understanding the foundation of confidence, to exploring the psychology behind it, setting clear goals, taking deliberate action, confronting fear and doubt, building competence, and living with empowering habits, every chapter has built upon the idea that self-confidence is a skill, a mindset, and a lifestyle. It grows in the dark, quiet moments when no one's watching, when you keep a promise to yourself, when you speak your truth even if your voice shakes, when you show up after failure, and when you say yes to opportunities that scare you just enough to make you grow. The beauty of confidence is that it's not one size fits all. It looks different on every person because it is intimately tied to your values, your past, and your unique story. This book does not ask you to become a different person. It invites you to uncover and unleash the strong, capable version of yourself that has always been within, often buried under years of doubt, fear, and external noise. You've been taught to seek validation outside of yourself, but real confidence blooms when you turn inward, when you learn to trust your voice, your instincts, and your process. And that trust is not built overnight. It is earned through consistent action, through showing up when it's hard, through learning new skills, breaking old patterns, and choosing to rise above self-imposed limits. You have learned that fear is not the enemy. It's a natural signal that you're on the edge of growth, and that you can move forward even while feeling afraid. You've discovered that doubt is just a thought, not a truth, and that confidence grows stronger every time you challenge that doubt with action. You now understand that the mind is a powerful tool, one that can either work for you or against you, and that by practicing mindfulness, self-talk, and positive mental conditioning, you can rewire your beliefs and attitudes to support your growth. Through the practice of setting goals, you've seen how clarity gives you power, how knowing what you want and why you want it becomes a compass to guide your decisions. You've embraced the idea that action is the antidote to fear, and that small, bold steps lead to momentum, which builds self-trust, which in turn fuels confidence. You've explored the concept of competence as the backbone of real confidence, that mastery is not a talent but a result of time, effort, and focus. You've seen how habits, those seemingly small daily choices, are actually the building blocks of a confident life, because they shape your identity and reinforce the belief that you are capable, worthy, and on the right path. The conclusion of this book isn't an ending, it's a beginning. It's an invitation to take what you've learned and live it. To apply the principles not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. To return to these tools whenever you feel lost or small, and to remember that you are never starting from zero, you are starting from experience, from resilience, from intention. Confidence is not about being loud, extroverted, or dominant. It's about being deeply rooted in who you are, and unshakable in your sense of purpose. It's about having the courage to speak when silence is easier, to stand when it's more comfortable to shrink, and to keep going when you feel like quitting. The most confident people you admire are not without fear or flaws. They've simply made peace with them and have chosen to keep showing up anyway. And now so can you. You've been given the knowledge, the strategies, and the mindset to transform how you see yourself and how you move through the world. But the final step belongs to you. Will you implement these practices? Will you reflect, take action, challenge your limits, and honor your growth? Will you step out of the story that says, "I'm not good enough," and into the one that says, "I am ready"? Because you are. You are ready to lead your life with intention, to speak your truth without apology, and to wake up each day grounded in the belief that you matter, that you are enough, and that you have what it takes to create a life that reflects your highest self. Self-confidence is not a destination, it's a daily decision. And now you have everything you need to make that decision, every single day. As you close this book, may you walk forward with your head held high, not because everything is perfect, but because you are choosing to believe in yourself more than you believe in your fear. That's the heart of confidence, and now it's yours to live.